in interesting times. Today's stories. Thousands protest in New Delhi against the citizenship law. Sudan's Bashir gets 2 years detention for corruption. Italy's sardines pack Rome for anti-far-right rally. Mexico City entices its police force to get in shape. Democrats react following passage of the articles of impeachment. President Trump on China tariffs and the impeachment, and I quote, witch hunt. Michael Bloomberg says he wants to shut down all coal plants by 2030. Plus, Polk County, Florida combats mosquitoes and deadly arboviruses. This is Eagle News coming to you from Washington, D.C., bringing you stories from around the globe. I'm Ace Ramirez. Several thousands Muslims, Hindus, and Assamese protesters rally in the Indian capital of New Delhi on Saturday evening, urging Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government to revoke the citizenship law, with some protesters holding signs saying, and I quote, "Stop dividing India."
So we do not want Assam to lose its identity and overdued and overwhelmed by the external powers, and external forces and external people coming from Bangladesh, because we know that we will become the minority in our own land. Once they get the citizenship, there will be no way out. Then we will outnumber, they will outnumber us.
So it's a serious concern for the Muslim women, because all those who do not have documents to prove that they are the citizens of the country, they will be excluded through the national register. And this new act which has come in place, the other communities, the 6 listed communities, they will be given citizenship. So the ones who will be excluded are the Muslim community. So it's a very serious concern, and based on religious grounds we are excluded. So this is something very discriminatory, and that is why we have come down today to protest against this act.
We feel attacked. Not only we feel attacked, but those who are democratic in nature, those who celebrate democracy, they are also feeling attacked because of this act today. And this will not stop here. If we do not raise our voice, this thing will not end here, because those who are trying to attempt to make this nation into a theoretical state, we are against this idea, and we reject this idea.
I'm Hindu, and I'm with all these people who are Muslims or whatever community they belong to. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. We all are united.
I think people have come out in large numbers because they understand how this government is damaging the fabric of the country. Hindu, Muslims, everybody are equal. We want that equality. We want to in fact move towards greater equality amongst different sections of the society.
A Sudanese court orders former President Omar al-Bashir to be detained for 2 years in a correctional center for corruption in one of several cases against the ousted autocrat. Bashir will serve his sentence after the verdict has been reached in another case in which he is accused of ordering the killing of demonstrators during the protests that led to his ouster.
إيلاء المداعم مرحوم البشير مؤسسة الإصلاح الاجتماعي لمدة عامين على أن تحسب المدة بعد انتهاء الإيراد في البلاغ 505650 على 2019 الخاص بخطاب التسليم الوارد إلينا بتاريخ 28 أغسطس 2019 مصادرة المبالغ التي تم ضبطها بالعملة الوطنية والأجنبية والمحددة بالمستند الاتهام لصالح حكومة السودان.
نستأنف إن شاء الله إلى محكمة الاستئناف وإلى المحكمة العليا وإلى دائرة المراجعة وإلى المحكمة الدستورية. كل ذلك سيتم على الرغم من عدم رضانا بما حدث، وعلى الرغم من أن هنالك نص يعني غريب في هذا الحكم في أنه صدر بالسجن. الذي يبلغ 70 ويفوق 70 لا يسجن، وإنما يغرب. هذا نص المادة 33، وقد أشرنا إليها ورفضنا أن نسترحم هذه المحكمة ونسترحم أحدا من الناس في أن نخفف بأسباب مخففة للرأي.
The charges stemmed from millions of dollars received by the toppled strongman from Saudi Arabia. Bashir, who was deposed by the army in April after months of mass protests against his 3-decade rule, appeared in court in a metal cage wearing a traditional white halabiya and turban for the verdict. Judge Al-Sadiq Abderrahman said Bashir was convicted of corruption and possession of foreign currency charges, which can carry a prison sentence of up to 10 years. Instead, the court, taking into account his age, ordered the 75-year-old to serve 2 years in a correctional center for the elderly. The judge said, and I quote, "Under the law, those who reach the age of 70 shall not serve jail terms." The judge said Bashir will serve his sentence after the verdict has been reached in another case in which he is accused of ordering the killing of demonstrators during the protests that led to his ouster. The court also ordered the confiscation of 6.9 million euros, $351,770, and 5.7 million Sudanese pounds, or $128,000, found at Bashir's home. The ex-president will appeal the verdict, said one of his lawyers, Ahmed Ibrahim. Hundreds more holding banners reading, and I quote, "Down, down the government," marched in central Khartoum, where there was a heavy security presence. Sudan is now ruled by a joint civilian and military sovereign council, which is tasked with overseeing a transition to civilian rule. The authorities announced Saturday the dissolution of professional organizations put in place under Bashir, one of the demands of the protest movement that unseated him.
Tens of thousands of members of Italy's youth-driven Sardine movement on Saturday rallied in Rome as part of their campaign to battle xenophobia and shake up the country's politics. The Sardines have become a symbol of protest against far-right firebrand leader Matteo Salvini, who served as Interior Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in Italy's previous coalition government and cracked down on immigration.
In Rome's immense San Giovanni Square, retiree Roberto Peperno was among those joining the crowd, which sang the anti-fascist anthem Bella Ciao, a staple of the movement's demonstrations. He said he turned out because he did not want to see, and I quote, "hatred propagated, and to do nothing would make him ashamed to be Italian." Taking aim at populism, 32-year-old Mattia Santuri, a founder of the movement, told the crowd the idea was to, I quote, "bring out a new energy through a much freer and more spontaneous form than a traditional political party that will not be hierarchical, but would instead set broad directions."
A un certo punto è arrivato il momento di fare le proposte. Cazzo. Non eravamo pronti. E allora ecco le nostre proposte. Siete pronti? I giornalisti sono attenti. Pretendiamo che chi è stato eletto vada nelle sedi istituzionali a fare politica invece che fare campagna elettorale permanentemente.
One demonstrator held up a giant sardine model, while others brandished drawings and posters. The movement, only a month old, started in Bologna, when a rally organized by 4 unknown activists to denounce Salvini's discourse of hatred and division drew a crowd of 15,000, surprising everybody. Since then, they have staged a series of rallies drawing tens of thousands in Milan, Florence, Naples, and Palermo. Santori, a researcher in economics, and the other co-founders, Andrea Gareffa, a 34-year-old tourist guide, and Roberto Marotti, a 31-year-old engineer, say they want to make politics, and I quote, cool. The movement's representative in the Italian capital is Stephen Ogongo, a 45-year-old journalist of Kenyan origin. He set up the Facebook page of the Roman chapter of the Sardines, announcing that the rally about 15 days ago.
Sì, ma io Salvini non lo considero, do poco spazio a lui perché è una campagna pubblicitaria continua per lui, anche quando se ne parla male, quindi siccome è una persona della quale proprio non ci ho trovato nulla di buono in quella persona.
Perché mi sembra un'ottima iniziativa, parla di valori che condivido, ripeto, antifascismo, antirazzismo, Costituzione, rispetto per le minoranze.
Non credo, perché credo che le nostre piazze ricalchino i valori della sinistra, i valori su cui è fondata questa nostra Costituzione, la nostra Repubblica, quindi penso che i valori siano gli stessi.
Quanto è buono l'odore del vento, dentro lo sento.
More than 1,000 police officers across Mexico's capital have enrolled in the Healthy Police program for a chance to gain a bonus of 1,000 pesos, about $50 a month, and also Slim Down, a program for overweight cops in one of the world's most obese countries.
It's a sunny morning in Mexico City, and police officers drip with sweat as they do push-ups and squats, part of the program for overweight cops in one of the world's most obese countries. The 24 officers grimacing through their workout on the pavement of the station house yard, most with round bellies bulging beneath their drenched t-shirts, are just a handful of the more than 1,000 across the capital who have enrolled in the program called Healthy Police. They get a bonus of 1,000 pesos, or about $50 a month, to participate, though judging by the looks on their faces as their instructor shouts encouragement to finish one more set, some of them seem to doubt whether it's worth it. But those who stick with the program, which was launched 3 months ago, say it can be life-changing.
Muchas cosas nuevas. Al inicio el primer mes fue difícil, ¿no? Mental y físico, pero conforme pasó el tiempo se ha convertido en un nuevo hábito de vida, tanto alimenticio como de acondicionamiento.
Barrera, who now looks fit and trim, cracked a grin when he revealed how much weight he has lost since he started. 16 kilos or 35 pounds.
La obesidad pues es algo que tenemos en todo el país, no solo en los policías, y esto se le está dando un resultado. Entonces el objetivo es cambiar sus hábitos para poder erradicar esta problemática que tenemos en el país.
According to national statistics, 3/4 of adults in Mexico are overweight or obese. Its obesity rate, nearly 1/3 of the adult population, is second only to the United States in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, a 36-member group of developed countries. According to public health experts, Mexico's obesity epidemic is driving high rates of diabetes and heart disease. Officials have started looking for ways to combat the problem. In 2014, the country leveled a tax on soda and other sugary beverages. One study estimates it will save 18,900 lives and more than $983 million over 10 years. This year, Congress also passed a law requiring manufacturers to put warning labels on junk foods high in sugar, sodium, or saturated fat. Mexico City's 83,000-member police force is not immune to the problem. Graciela Benitez has lost around 10 kilos since she started the program, which also includes nutrition counseling sessions to help officers eat a more healthful, balanced diet.
Hasta me siento con gusto, no me canso, no me da sueño. Cambió mi vida, cambió y es bueno para mí y para mi familia, porque también mi familia pues cambió su alimentación.
The authorities are hoping she will serve as an example for more obese police officers.
Up next, Democrats react following passage of the articles of impeachment. President Trump on China tariffs and the impeachment, I quote, witch hunt. Michael Bloomberg says he wants to shut down all coal plants by 2030. Plus, Polk County, Florida combats mosquitoes and deadly arboviruses. Eagle News will be right back. Welcome back. This is Eagle News coming to you from Washington, D.C. I'm Ace Ramirez. Following the passage of the articles of impeachment against U.S. President Donald Trump, U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee says, and I quote, "This is a moment of personal conscience," as Democrats hope to convince their Republican colleagues next week for the formal vote to impeach Trump.
The misconduct of the president raised in these two articles is of urgent importance to the American people because they describe not just high crimes and misdemeanors, but...
Well, let me just say I hope there will be healing in this nation, and I certainly hope that we're going to have the opportunity to convince our colleagues on the floor of the House. This is a moment of personal conscience. This is a moment where we had to hold the president accountable. As we debate this week, our tones will be sober and somber, but it'll be on the facts. And we expect that maybe someone will be convinced to look at the facts and the Constitution. That's what we'll adhere to.
U.S. President Donald Trump stood on the verge of impeachment Friday after a House panel approved charges he abused his power and obstructed Congress, setting up a historic vote in the chamber next week. In a grave moment for a deeply divided nation, Democrats and Republicans in the Judiciary Committee voted along strict party lines, 23-17, to approve two articles of impeachment against the president. Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler said, and I quote, "Today is a solemn and sad day." After the votes, which were called with surprising speed a day after a 14-hour debate pitting the warring parties against one another. The panel recommended that the Democratic-led House ratify both articles, ahead of a vote by the entire chamber that is expected to make Trump only the third U.S. president in history to be impeached. One article charges the president with abuse of power for conditioning $391 million in critical military aid and the White House meeting on Ukraine launching investigations into Democrats ahead of the 2020 election. The other charges him with obstruction of Congress for his blanket refusal to cooperate with any aspect of the inquiry, a development Democrats say is unprecedented in American history. Nadler said in brief remarks, and I quote, "The House will act expeditiously." Impeachment by the House would trigger a trial early next year in the Senate, where the solid Republican majority is expected to protect the president by voting against conviction and removal. Trump, who insists there is a witch hunt against him, called the panel's impeachment vote, I quote, "an embarrassment to our country." but he also insisted the divisive process will be, I quote, very good for me politically, as Americans gear up for the presidential election next November. The White House said Trump, I quote, looks forward to receiving in the Senate the fair treatment and due process which continues to be disgracefully denied to him by the House.
Thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced a major thaw in the trade war with China, including immediate cuts to punishing import tariffs. Trump also commented on the approval by the House of 2 articles of impeachment against him, calling it a witch hunt, but saying the impeachment process has helped his popularity because people are disgusted. Let's take a look.
To me, it's not complicated, but that's what I do. It's a phenomenal deal. The tariffs will largely remain, 25% on $250 billion, and we'll use them for future negotiations on the Phase 2 deal, because China would like to see the tariffs off, and we're okay with that, but they'll be used as a negotiating table for the Phase 2 deal. I think they'll hit $50 billion in agriculture. No, much more than 50, because it's also manufacturing and other. But I think in agriculture, they will hit $50 billion.
Next year, or when?
Pretty soon. They've already stepped it up. It's a witch hunt. It's a sham. It's a hoax. Nothing was done wrong. Zero was done wrong. I think it's a horrible thing to be using the tool of impeachment, which is supposed to be used in an emergency, and it would seem many, many, many years apart, to be using this for a perfect phone call where the president of that country said there was no pressure whatsoever, didn't even know what we were talking about. My poll numbers, as you know, have gone through the roof. Fundraising for the Republican Party has gone through the roof. We're setting records. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, because the people are disgusted. The people are absolutely disgusted. Nobody's ever seen anything like this.
Democratic presidential hopeful Michael Bloomberg announces his will to retire all U.S. coal plants by 2030. He also reacts on the UK legislative elections that had Boris Johnson win in a landslide, saying that beating Donald Trump will be more difficult now.
Mike Bloomberg.
It again, and so far we have retired 299 out of 530 coal plants across the country. And we have a commitment to retire all of them by 2030. And that's really why I'm running for president, because I think that Donald Trump is the wrong person for the job. I don't think that he is reuniting and rebuilding America, which is what we needed. And I know it's a crazy idea, but when I am president, you can rest assured scientists will be allowed to do their jobs. Yes. I promise you I will reverse Trump's dangerous rollbacks of rules that protect clean air, and our drinking water and our health and safety. I think that beating Donald Trump is going to be more difficult after the UK election. That to me is pretty clear.
In other news, one county in Florida continues its war against mosquitoes and deadly arboviruses. Eagle News correspondent Melissa Allen visits Polk County Mosquito Control Unit and learns about how we can help win the fight. Let's take a look.
In Central Florida, with its generally hot and wet climate, pesky mosquitoes are almost a year-round problem. EBC got a behind-the-scenes look at what one Florida county is doing in the war against mosquitoes and in helping to protect the public against the deadly arboviruses they transmit. Dr. Carl Bohini is the Director and Program Manager for the Polk County Mosquito Control Unit.
Polk County is a very huge county, over 2,000 square miles. So we have a lot of mosquitoes here. And Currently we have about 62 trap sites around the county, and each week we sample those and we set out traps and retrieve those traps, and they catch mosquitoes. And then in those traps, then we know where there are lots of mosquitoes, and we treat for those particular areas. Yeah.
Even in the fall months, when the majority of the country is experiencing significantly cooler weather, mosquito populations in the Sunshine State continue to thrive and pose a threat to public health.
In Florida, we basically have mosquitoes all throughout the year. By December, January, the numbers are very low, but we do have mosquitoes, and they're still capable of transmitting the diseases. Yes, we've caught mosquitoes in our trap when the overnight temperature was, below 50. I've seen mosquitoes in our traps when the outside temperature was about 45 degrees.
Well, I want to talk about this trap here. This is actually what we call a gravid trap. Mosquitoes find this an ideal place to lay their eggs. And at the same time, we have this, which has a fan, which can suck the adults into the trap. So we can get the eggs as well as the adults in this particular trap.
In order to combat the multitudes of mosquitoes throughout the county, the Mosquito Control Unit uses a comprehensive approach which includes both monitoring and controlling mosquito populations by various means. Dr. Buhini explains their Sentinel Chickens program.
Currently, we have 6 Sentinel flock sites around the county. Each flock site has about 6 chickens. We draw blood samples from them, and then we send them to the lab, and we test for antibodies for West Nile, Triple E, that's Eastern Equine Encephalitis, and West Nile virus, St. Louis encephalitis. It's like an early warning system for us. If those that particular site test positive, for say West Nile, so we know that there's West Nile virus in the area, and we go to that area and try to spray the area to try to kill the mosquitoes.
Airplanes and trucks are used for spraying pesticides over vast areas. Nick Harbo gave us a tour of one of their mosquito spray trucks.
This is the chemical tank. We have Control 3030, permethrin kind of, chemical. Much softer than some of the other chemicals used in the industry, but still fairly effective. The computer is taking a GPS track of the vehicle, knowing how fast it's going, and changes the pump speed so that we're always getting an even spray, whether the driver's going 30 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour.
To help ensure that the mosquitoes aren't becoming resistant to the pesticides being used, chemical resistance testing is conducted periodically.
At the beginning of every season, we test whether all the chemicals that we're using are effective in killing the mosquitoes.
The Polk County Mosquito Control Unit also works to educate the public about eliminating mosquito breeding sites around the home and preventing mosquito bites.
We always advise, number one, tourists and even the general population to wear repellents if they're going out, especially during dusk and dawn. EPA recommends, repellents with DEET and picaridin, they're very good. And DEET has been used for a very long time. It has a very good history, and that's what we use.
According to the Polk County Mosquito Control Unit and the Florida Department of Health, it can be hard to pinpoint exactly when mosquito season will end. Thus, it is strongly recommended that Central Floridians, as well as tourists visiting the region, take proper measures to always protect themselves and their families. Signing off from Bartow, Florida, I'm Melissa Allen, and always 1 with 25.
Thank you, Melissa. That is today's Eagle News. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews and on Twitter, twitter.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Ace Ramirez, 1 with 25.